One of the many pieces of activism that I've appreciated immensely that you've been involved with, was advocating for President Lula when he was a political prisoner. You visited him when he was in prison in Curitiba. I had the honor of going and interviewing him with the journalist from Brazil Wire, who's reporting on exposing the truth of that case. Even before the Intercept leaks, they laid the intellectual groundwork for understanding that case. So, and we were honored to cover it significantly on this show, and including using clips of yours explaining the situation. Can you tell us why you think President Lula is such a particularly important leader? And I mean, the situation obviously continues even more dire today with Corona. Can you reflect on that a bit?
Well, President Lula came from a working-class background. He was a union activist during the dictatorship, latter days of the dictatorship, succeeded in organizing significant opposition, ran for president. He had his victory stolen a couple of times, but he finally won the presidency, initiated a new era in Brazilian history. You don't have to take my word for it. You take the word of World Bank, not a radical institution. 2016, a couple of years after the end of his term, they published a long study of recent Brazilian economic history. They called Lula's term in office the golden decade of Brazilian economic history. Enormous reduction of poverty, a tremendous increase in inclusion, large parts of the population, blacks and Indians, totally marginalized and repressed, brought into it policies to give people some control over their lives. Tremendous success. A couple of years after he left office, there was a fall in commodity prices, and many argue that it was just the high commodity prices that he was based his successes on. But the World Bank disagrees. They say with the right policies, it could have all been continued after the commodity fall. At the same time, Brazil became one of the most respected countries in the world, if not the most respected. You take a look now, it's an absolute pariah, one of the most ridiculed and condemned countries in the world. It's a big shift. Well, there were plenty of problems with Lula's term, I should say. One of them was he tolerated corruption much too readily, didn't pay attention to it. And there was a lot of it in the Workers' Party. That's endemic not only in Brazil, but in the entire region. And here, I should say, we often don't call it corruption, we call it legal. But there's plenty of just plain, straight corruption. But so he did tolerate. The thing this administration really failed to do was to get people to understand that they were part of the system that was developing. So in fact, now it's quite striking. I've seen this in visiting Brazil. You probably have too, in polls and so on. When people are asked, people who benefited greatly from the Lula's programs, Bolsa Familia and others, people who I talked to people, they were very poor families. They were able to buy a car, kid could go to college and start a small business. When you ask them, how did this happen? They say it came from God. Or it was an accident. They don't know that it was part of the Workers' Party programs. And that was a real failure of engagement that just sort of came to them somehow. They were not part of it. That was a big failure. And there are other things you can criticize. But the judgment about the golden decade, I think, is quite right. And the rise of Brazil to a position of international, great international respect as a voice of the global South was extremely significant and part of the reason for his downfall. The power systems don't like that. Upstarts are not supposed to do that. Take one case. Brazil, along with Turkey, negotiated a deal with Iran, which could have completely ended the crisis. Obama and Clinton came down on them like a ton of bricks. This is our business, not your business. Got to it. I won't go into the details, but that's a general reaction. Inside Brazil, it's rather similar. The elites in Brazil are extremely racist and class conscious. And here's this guy who comes from a working class background, doesn't even speak proper Portuguese, didn't go to the right schools. He's supposed to be humble, grateful for what we do for him, not up there setting policy. You talk to people, you can just sense the bitterness and anger just for these reasons, quite apart from the policies, even more than the policies. Anyhow, a couple of years after he was out of office, a soft coup was initiated. Don't go through the details, but it finally led to the October 2018 election. Lula was jailed. He was the most popular candidate, very likely to win. He was jailed on very dubious charges, but he was also silenced, not just jailed, which tells you what was going on. Unlike a mass murderer on death's row, he was not permitted to make a statement. That was very important. He kept quiet during the electoral campaign. Now he's out on sort of partial release while the appeals are going on. But before the election, keep him out. And what came in was an ultra-right fanatic who's destroying Brazil. I mean, the country right now is just about on the verge of a military coup. I don't know if you saw the clips from a couple of days ago where Bolsonaro gangs were attacking the parliamentary building, the Supreme Court, and saying, get rid of it. They're blocking our hero, the executive. Bolsonaro fired the heads of the investigative divisions, which were looking into his family. The statement was, nobody's going to fuck around with my family.
Right.
Actually, it's pretty similar to what just happened here. Very similar. Bolsonaro sees himself as a kind of clone of Trump, tragedy and farce next to each other. And what Trump just did is very similar. He just fired all the inspectors general who were put into place to monitor corruption and malfeasance in executive offices. They were beginning to inquire into this fetid swamp that he's created in Washington. So he fired them all. And he went, like any tin pot dictator, went out of his way to humiliate the senior Republican senator, Charles Grassley, who'd spent his career setting this system in implementation. Not a peep from the Republican Party. They've disappeared as a party. It's worse than the old Communist Party. The leader gives an order, we creep on our knees and bless him. Nothing like this in political history.
You just watched a Michael Brooks show video. Subscribe to get them all. Why wouldn't you? Don't be foolish. Click subscribe below and become a patron as well. Patreon.com/TMBS. Thanks, everybody.